Synergy. Synergy is when the combined effort of two things actually creates a bigger result than you would expect from 1 plus 1 equals 2. It's like 1 plus 1 equals 1,000. And synergy is amazing. It happens in all kinds of areas, but it can also happen in relationships, romantic relationships. Yesterday I did an audio like this about how I wasn't sure that men who really harp on submission really had any idea of what it was, because they seem to be talking about compliance and not submission, because submission is mutual and submission is about partnership, about taking turns, yielding to one another. And I wanted to bring up synergy because I've been married 17 years and I've been in other relationships, and I am a very submissive woman. I'm not a compliant woman at all because I'm a sovereign adult. I have a brain. I'm intelligent. I like to think things through and analyze things and all that kind of stuff. My dad taught me to do that. And that's a whole nother thing, right? Sometimes I wonder if the men who say these things were raised in two-parent households or were raised by their dads, because everyone has a different family dynamic. I know in my particular family dynamic that my father was the head of the house. Unquestionably, what he said went, period. And he had a tremendous influence and impact on how I was raised. He decided a lot of things. Now, that doesn't mean that he didn't defer to my mom about a lot of things. But I am not a woman who has some kind of father wound, who's looking for a father in the man that she marries. And so I think that sometimes some men are used to that. And because a woman is looking for a father, they try to take on the father role. And the father role is one that's a lot more authoritative and authoritarian than the husband or the partner role. And so sometimes they get those mixed up. Um, so having had a very strong father, very present, very active, having been raised around nothing but married couples for the entirety of my life. Everyone in my family is married and still married to this day. All of my friends in my friend group came from two-parent households, except for one that I, got around when I was in seventh grade. So I wasn't around my first single parent household till I was in seventh grade. So all of the rest of my childhood, I've been around nothing but married people. Marriage is normal to me. I've seen it work well and I've seen it work poorly. But I want to go back to synergy, because when you have one commander in chief, right? One person who's dictating everything, you have a dictatorship. You have one brain that's working. When you have a partnership, you have two brains that are working. And a lot of times when those are working in harmony, it creates synergy. So let's say, for example, that you had two amazing stars, musical stars from two different genres, like maybe let's say Beyonce and Garth Brooks, right? And they decide to do a collaboration. Well, the expectation would be that Beyonce's fans are going to be interested. Garth Brooks fans are going to be interested. So you're going to have 1 plus 1 equals 2. But that isn't always what happens. Sometimes there's synergy. Sometimes there's people who don't know Beyonce or Garth Brooks that get interested. Sometimes there's people who aren't fans of either type of music that hear this particular song and get interested. And so you can have way more than 1+1 = 2. Again, like I said, you can have 1+1 = 1,000. And that's the power of synergy, that you never really know what's going to happen when you actually partner with someone, when you actually open yourself to really working together with someone, working together, cooperating. And it does mean that you have to give up total control, which some people seem to be very, very adamant about not doing. They seem to want control much more than they want a relationship. Because a relationship is about relating. It's about give and take. It's about communication. It's about respect. You know, when you see a synergistic relationship, there's so much love, respect, and even awe that these people have for each other, because they realize this person makes me better. We're not just accomplishing our goals, but we're transforming in ways that we never even thought was possible. We're becoming the best versions of ourselves. And we're bringing the best out in each other. And that's another thing that these people that are so into submission don't seem to understand. The purpose of a relationship is growth, not control. The purpose of a relationship is for you both to become better, wiser, stronger, healthier, for you to bring the best out in each other, for you to multiply each other. It's not just about who gets to say yes or no, who gets control, who gets obeyed. That is such a low-level thing. And this whole alpha male thing, look at the research. There is no such thing in most species. All right. So the research that was done on that initially was like a lot of research. When people first put out their theories, they go with what they see and what they interpret. And then later they realize, oh my, we messed it up. You know, we didn't see the whole picture. We didn't take all these variables into account. And that's the same thing with getting all excited about submission. Partnership is better, and understanding that submission is not compliance is also something really important. Submission is mutual. It's not one-sided. It's not your chance to beat on your chest and tell somebody what to do, because that feeds your ego, because that makes you feel like a big man or like you have it together because somebody out here is listening to you. Because you should already have confidence without needing that. You should already have an identity without needing it. You should already have a sense of accomplishment without needing that. And if that's the only place that you get these things, then you need some personal development. You need some inner work. You need to work on yourself and go find it somewhere else, because that's not what relationships are for. They're not for control and subservience and oppression and repression. That's not what they're for at all. Synergy. Synergy is when the combined effort of two things actually creates a bigger result than you would expect from 1+1 = 2. It's like 1+1 = 1,000. And synergy is amazing. It happens in all kinds of areas, but it can also happen in relationships, romantic relationships. You know, yesterday I did an audio like this about how I wasn't sure that men who really harp on submission really had any idea of what it was, because they seem to be talking about compliance and not submission, because submission is mutual and submission is about partnership, about taking turns, yielding